In the modern anime industry, shows which have a strong creative presentation are extremely rare. On top of that, shows which execute this presentation in a near flawless manner are even harder to come across. But despite all that, every once in a while you come across a show which has that extra layer of effort/polish to it. Heavenly Delusion or Tengoku Daimakyo is one such show. It's the newest productionig project and it's one of the most well-rounded, complete-looking shows in recent memory. Let's talk about Heavenly Delusion and its visual quality. Make sure to subscribe. Do it now. So, why is this show so well put together? Why does it look so good? Well, there are three main reasons for it. One of which is the creative vision. This show knows what it wants to look like. The staff understands the show and provides a visual look that complements the story. This aesthetic is present throughout the episodes and it adds to the overall consistency. The second reason is the staff list, which is really stacked. Names like Hiroyuki Yamashita, Wellen Zhang, Tetsuya Takeuchi, Shingo Yamashita, and many more are involved in the key animation department. Also, Kentaro Waki is the director of photography. The overall quality has to be high when names like these are involved. The final reason is time. The team had an amazing schedule which allowed them to fully realize their potential without having to rely on time-efficient techniques. A good schedule allows animators to finish their works. It allows the animation directors and the chief animation directors to maintain visual consistency, and it allows the compositing department to put everything together in a smooth manner. In this industry, time is money. A good schedule is the real high budget, and this show is a perfect example of the same. I love how this show looks. You know, we occasionally come across shows which look very different from the normal stuff. A Tatami Galaxy or a Mob Psycho, for example. And while I do love both these shows, my personal favorite visual style is one which resembles anime, all while looking different enough. And Heavenly Delusion fits that description perfectly. Of course, I'll talk about the actual animation, but let's start with the background work, which is ridiculously good. The art direction is one of my favorite things about this show. It features two very different styles of backgrounds. The intentionally bland, almost sterile backgrounds inside the school, and the rundown, rusty backgrounds outside of it. This dichotomy is exactly what the staff was going for, and it works. Even though the interior of the school is well maintained and generally safer, the outside world simply looks more alive, even though it's literally a post-apocalyptic setting. This show tells a story through the background art. Yuji Kaneko and Yoshikazu Tsuehiro served as the art directors for this show, and both of them did a fantastic job. The first episode opens up with this incredible dynamic shot which makes use of a 3D background. This scene was animated by Shingo Yamashita, and the amount of
moving elements
is really impressive. Every character here moves differently, although the actual camera work feels a bit jarring. Again, the backgrounds look incredible, and the 3D background here matches that style perfectly. It's busy but not overpowering. Also, the characters are always moving, especially in the first 3 episodes. There's near constant character acting. Shuto Enomoto has done a lot of work for this series. He animated this sequence from the first episode. The crows look amazing and the character acting is incredible. The characters feel alive. There's a level of personality in their movements. Of course, this episode had a lot of character acting, but Enomoto's work stood out to me. He also animated this sequence later on in the episode. The character acting is simply phenomenal. Also, the color design for this show is top-notch. It perfectly complements the busy backgrounds. There's this short but ominous sequence animated by Ryota Furukawa. The effects, aka the clouds and the lightning, looks incredible, and the compositing complements it perfectly. The first episode also featured some action. The action scenes were storyboarded by Tetsuya Takeuchi. I loved his work in the 5th Kara no Kyokai movie, and this was almost as good. Most of this fight was animated by Ryo Araki, and the show used lots of camera shakes which complemented the rough, slightly choppy style of animation very well. There's an amazing rotation shot thrown in there as well. Ryota Furukawa's sequence near the end looked incredible. The background had this strong fisheye effect to it, and the compositing added this subtle blue accent which looked amazing. The actual actual monster design is very well done and quite horrifying. Episode 2 features my all-time favorite use of darkness in anime. This episode really allows the compositing to shine. The clouds cover the moon, the lighting changes. It's now a darker, more artificial yellow because of the flashlights. It's a subtle shift, but it works. The aspect ratio changes and pretty much nothing is visible besides the characters. The background briefly appears when the cone of light from their flashlights face the correct direction. It feels like a movie, not an anime movie, a movie. Also, the monster closing in is so well done. It has the perfect amount of tension. Also, the close-up looks insane. I don't know what's going on there. Despite being so dark, this sequence looks amazing, and the flashlight glow is handled incredibly well. This scene had very little light and therefore very little visibility for a while, which is why the brief but strong orange glow from the sparks looked so good. It's the perfect contrast to the darkness. This entire sequence was animated by Toru Iwasawa, and while his animation was incredible, the compositing was the real MVP here. This chase scene follows and it was amazing. The first cut was a long one, and it got across the tension really well. The final portion of this fight was animated by Hironori Tanaka, and his work features some amazing morphing animation, and another one of those aspect ratio changes, with a top-notch slow-motion cut to go with it. The final set of effects look incredible as well. This episode also contained tons of character acting. This shortcut animated by Keisuke Kobayashi is my personal favorite. Wellen Zhang's animation also looked great, I just prefer the more realistic style of character acting. Episode 3 was very good looking as well. Of course, the backgrounds looked amazing and there was plenty of character acting. Keisuke Kobayashi's work was particularly impressive. Also, Hiroyuki Yamashita worked on this episode. The character acting was top-notch throughout his sequence. The movements were carefully and delicately animated, it was incredible. Shuto Enomoto did some extensive animation direction work for this episode. He also animated this very impressive scene. The proportion work on the monster is really accurate. The three-dimensionality here is phenomenal. These crowd shots are really impressive because they are fully 2D. And speaking of dimensions, I'm not the biggest fan of these occasionally 3D card things. The episode also had this amazing color palette switch up. Episode 4 was relatively weaker, if our definition of weak includes a lack of movement-heavy cuts. The backgrounds and the overall direction was still amazing. Asuka Suzuki storyboarded and animated this boat chase scene, which was wonderfully dynamic. Also, fun fact, the labels on the cardboard boxes were individually placed by the compositing department. Episode 5 had this incredible sequence animated by Tetsuya Takeuchi with all sorts of instrument playing and dancing. The instrument playing looked very accurate to me. He is showing off at this point. We also get more of that Ryo Araki action animation with the rough and somewhat choppy movement. Again, that is intentional. I have seen people complain about the low frame rate, which is stupid. It is obviously there to increase the impact. Whenever an animator does something different, they get hated on. Episode 6 also contains a decent Ryo Araki scene with some amazing perspectives. The most recent episode as of this recording, episode 7, didn't have all that many standout cuts, although Kiruko's hallucination looked very good. The direction and the compositing made it terrifying. As a whole, this show looks incredible. I did gloss over a lot of the character acting simply because I want this video to be 8 minutes long and not 800, but make no mistake, this show, the first 3 episodes in particular, had a lot of character acting. This show looks special. Every scene, every cut, every frame looks interesting. The incredible backgrounds, the phenomenal compositing, the amazing animation, this show has it all. This show looked perfect. It's a high-profile production with a passionate staff. Every department does their job incredibly well, and Kentaro Waki's masterful compositing brings it all together perfectly. It's an amazing adaptation. That's about it. Speaking of adaptations, what makes an anime adaptation good? Click the video on screen to find out. Make sure to like and subscribe, and until next time.